All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We're going to go ahead and get started. We may have some more folks join us, but let's go ahead and dive in. My name is Salim Sawaya, and I will be the MC for today's webinar. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, and we're really excited to share with you some of the ways that GIS is being used in the nonprofit community. Some housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box, the chat box, in your GoToWebinar control panel. We'll be monitoring the questions during the presentation, and we will also have time for questions at the end. We will be recording this session and making it available following the webinar. Also posted is the Esri Nonprofit Program Team email alias, where you can reach out directly to us with questions or if you need help or want to engage at any time. As mentioned, I'm Salim Sawaya. I'm the manager of Esri's Nonprofit and Global Organizations team, and I also oversee our nonprofit program, which I'll be sharing more about shortly. Leading the technical demonstrations and discussions for this webinar will be Adam Pfister, solution engineer on the nonprofit and global organization team, as well as Matt Thomas, who's a solution engineer on the health and human services team. Finally, I'd like to introduce Pat Dolan, who's been deeply involved with the creation of this webinar and the content that we'll be sharing today from the ALS Association's Golden West chapter. Diagnosed with ALS, Pat has brought his passion and skills to this nonprofit to make a difference. So just a brief overview of today's webinar. I'll start off with a brief introduction to Esri and our nonprofit program, and I'll highlight some of the common patterns of use of ArcGIS among nonprofits. I'll then hand it over to Adam and Matt to dig in and show you how to bring these patterns to life within your organization. And we'll finish up with some times for question and answer and share some information about how to get started with the things that we'll show you today. At Esri, we believe that GIS has an important role to play for organizations working to make the world a better place. GIS supports digital transformation that's taking place across the nonprofit community, helping organizations to be more effective, efficient, and ultimately to create a bigger impact. Esri is the global leader in mapping and spatial analytics technology that helps organizations to deliver effective and sustainable solutions to problems around the world. Since 1969, we've enabled users to advance their missions through our complete location platform, ArcGIS. Today, the software is deployed in more than 350,000 organizations, including the world's largest cities, most national governments, 75% of Fortune 500 companies, more than 7,000 colleges and universities, and 6,000 nonprofits and NGOs, including those names that you can see on the screen. In this webinar, Patterns of Use for the Nonprofit Community, we'll be taking a look at some of the ways that nonprofit organizations are, or could be, applying ArcGIS to the important work that they're leading and show you how you can get started. Supporting nonprofits is in Esri's DNA and has been part of our work since our founding almost 50 years ago. In 2010, Esri created the Nonprofit Organization Program as a way to streamline and scale up our work to get software, services, and training into the hands of nonprofit organizations. We want to ensure that nonprofits have access to the same world-class technology as all of our other customers, despite limited resources. If your organization is already a member of the program, great. If not, the program is open to 501c3 nonprofits supporting sustainable development, conservation, humanitarian, and community service work. To apply to the program, just go to esri.com/nonprofit, scroll down towards the bottom of the page, and click Begin Here. That will take you to a short form that you need to fill and submit, and one of us will get back to you shortly. Once accepted to the program, you're eligible to receive highly discounted nonprofit offerings for ArcGIS Online, desktop, and many other Esri technology and products. But now that you have access to ArcGIS, what can you do? And how do you get started? Let's explore that on today's webinar. Nonprofits' work requires resources. Your organization needs to understand its donors in order to raise funds, find new donors, and stay engaged with your network of donors in the right way. Tools like ArcGIS Operations Dashboard can help your nonprofit develop important insights about your donors, track your progress, and use the power of location and data to build your donor network. Nonprofits often provide relevant information and resources to support the communities or the geographies that you're focused on. An interactive web application like this resource locator is something that can be easily created and embedded in your organization's website so that your stakeholders and beneficiaries can understand what is happening and where. Finally, all nonprofit organizations need to engage their stakeholders, donors, partners, volunteers, and beneficiaries. You have a story to tell. Story maps for ArcGIS are a suite of applications that allow you to combine various maps and other multimedia to advocate for your mission, communicate, and engage with your stakeholders. So what's needed to do all of this? You need an internet connection and a web browser and ArcGIS Online, which we will show you and talk about today. You need to bring your enthusiasm, and you need to allocate time to working with these tools and enabling some of the things that we're going to show you today. But let's do just that. Let's show you instead of talking about it. Now I'll go ahead and I'll hand it over to Matt. He and Adam are going to show you the tools in action.
Thank you, Salim. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Alrighty, so Salim mentioned ArcGIS Online. Now, ArcGIS Online, it acts as the center of all of these patterns. It allows members of your organization to securely log in with their own unique identity to discover, use, make, and share maps and mapping applications within your organization or for the public. It acts as a central portal of data and maps, and it's accessible through mobile, web, and desktop applications. It provides users with different functionality depending on their role. ArcGIS Online and the entire ArcGIS platform, it has quite a spectrum of complexity, ranging from sophisticated to simple, allowing each member of your organization appropriate access to what they need to use the platform for. Here on the next screen, we have a suite of ArcGIS applications. Many of these are available and ready to use already with your ArcGIS Online subscription. These expand your capabilities and allow you to reach your audiences in unique ways. Now, today we're going to focus on 4 of these applications. In my demonstration, we'll look at ArcGIS Maps for Office, as well as Operations Dashboard. And then Adam will show us Esri Story Maps, as well as the Web App Builder for ArcGIS. So we'll go ahead and start by looking what happens when we open ArcGIS Online, especially for those of us that are brand new to it. We get to our splash screen, and this can be doctored up to fit the look and feel of your organization with your own unique logo and everything. There's a place where we can manage our members. So every member of our organization should have a unique identity, and they should each have a unique role as well, depending on how they will be interacting with the system. Within the ArcGIS Online portal, I'm able to manage data. So this is just an example. Within my content, I have the different feature layers. And a feature layer is a web service that is geographically enabled to create maps and applications. So this is a feature layer that I own, and I'm able to share it with different members of my organization or with the public, or keep it private to myself, depending on how I'll be using this feature layer. So just by coming over here, I can easily add this to a new map. And when I do that, the map opens up and I'm able to see the geographic side of the data visually that will display on the map in just a few seconds. And let's see. And it's also important to understand that every piece of data also has tabular data behind the scenes. So this attribute table, I don't have a whole lot in this one. So different data sets will vary. But in a polygon like this, I might have my population counts and things like that, all stored as part of the tabular data. So to go ahead and get started with our demonstration, let's look at more of a real-world scenario. So I might start in Excel. A lot of us in the nonprofit world use Excel to manage our data. And this particular spreadsheet that I have, this is a list of my donors, where for each donor, I have their home address. I also have the amount that they've donated this year. And I also have it classified based on a threshold of my choosing, where in this case, I have it classified as either being over or under a benchmark of $400. Now, this is all fictional data. None of these are actual donors. We just created it using random tools. Now, say I want to take the data that exists in this spreadsheet and make it something actionable, interactive, and informative throughout my organization. Folks, decision makers, CEOs that are concerned with donations, they need to be able to see some sort of status of where we sit as an organization with donations, so that we can plan for a future, plan future efforts, market to acquire additional donors, things of that nature. So I want to use ArcGIS in order to do that. Esri provides a plugin for Microsoft Office. We can see here I have an ArcGIS Maps tab sitting within Excel. And I've already signed in with my ArcGIS Online organization. This plugin is a free download and it's completely accessible. All I need is to have an ArcGIS Online login in order to use it. So what I will do first is take my data and make it geographic. I'll go ahead and use my plugin to start this process. All I need to do it is to have some sort of geographic reference within my table. So that if I have a latitude, longitude coordinates, XY coordinates, that'll work very smoothly. But the more common method is to have an address. And we do a process called geocoding. Geocoding is where we take an address and have it converted into a location on the map. So the geocode system, the way that it works, it uses several parameters such as address, city, region or state, postal or zip code, things of that nature. And in my table, I have columns that will match that. So I don't need to have every single one of these attributes defined within my table. The more I have, the more accurate my addresses will be. But often address, city, state, zip, that's definitely plenty. So I'll go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to style it just generically. All I want is just points on the map for each location. And we'll go ahead and add data. And now my geocode service on the back end is going through each of these addresses and identifying latitude, longitude coordinates for them to draw the dots on the map for each of my donors. It'll take just a few seconds for it to do that. And what I'm left with is a map, and that just lives entirely within Excel. There's a couple things I can do right out of the gate if I want to make this map a certain way. I can change how my points are symboled. If I wanted to, I might want it to show, I might want to size my points on the map according to the donations. I can cluster my points. If I do that, it gives me a a summary of how many points are in this particular area. And as I zoom in, it will spread those indicators around. And this might be a good practice if I have a lot of points where it's just overwhelming to see points all over the map that don't make a whole lot of sense, or if my data is particularly private and I don't want anyone to be able to see the actual locations. That might be a situation where I do that. Another way I can do that is to use a heat map, and it gives me a similar result where I can see the areas in yellow where I have a high concentration of points and the areas in blue where I have a smaller concentration. For now, I will just keep the exact points. And this would never be something that I'd share with my public, but it could be something that I share internally within decision makers in my organization. So I'm able to keep my map entirely within Excel, but I would like to incorporate it with ArcGIS Online. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to do some data enrichment. This enriched data tool, it gives me access to thousands of demographic and behavioral variables. And the one that I'm interested in is called Tapestry. And this is Esri's method of market segmentation. And while that is loading, I'll give you a quick explanation on what that is. Basically, Esri's demographers have worked with roughly 60 or so different demographic and behavioral variables to determine 67 different market segments. And they're divided into 14 different life mode categories. Each one of these market segments has a clever, catchy name. We have things like urban villages, salt of the earth, in style. They just kind of give a description of what kinds of people would fit into that market segment. So basically, we could look at any household in the United States and classify them into one of these market areas just as a general understanding of who these people are based on their age, their race, their gender, their family size, their spending patterns, how they spend their leisure time. All of these sorts of categories would contribute to how someone is classified in their market segment. And it allows us, as we organize various programs, so that we can really identify our target audience and where they might be. And we can also plan our marketing strategies to really reach people in the places where they spend their time, over the media that they actually use. So within any given geographic boundary, whether it's a zip code or a state or a county, we can get an idea of what is the dominant market segment that is present. If a certain county is 60% senior escapes, then we would handle our marketing efforts differently than if it was 60% family foundations, for example. Each one of these market segments comes with a flyer provided by Esri, such as Laptops and Lattes, Urban Villages, Exurbanites, where it gives us a description of who the folks are that live there, what their neighborhood looks like, what their socioeconomic traits are. We see some of the census data about their age and sex, race and ethnicity, income, how they handle their budget. Their market profile gives us an understanding of where they shop, what kind of cars they drive, what kinds of radio stations they listen to. So it helps us to really meet our audience where they are. And we also see the geographic spread throughout the United States. And this one, Exurbanites, is particularly useful in this topic of donations, as we see one of their descriptions is that they are generous in their donations. So this might be a market segment that I'm particularly interested in engaging with in the future. So we'll come back into Excel, and I see that that has been added. And this added an additional column. So based on this address, the neighborhood that this address exists in is predominantly of the professional pride market. So now that I have my data all ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and hit share. So I just need to give it a name. I'll name it donor locations, and I'll hit share. And this will package up my data, and it will upload it into ArcGIS Online so that it becomes part of my content in my ArcGIS Online subscription, so that I can use it and I can create maps. I can share the data with colleagues so that they can create maps with it, and we can create some visibility within our organization of this data. I'd also want to just quickly add before we leave Excel, something I might also use is office locations. And what these two have in common is that these are very specific addresses. They will show up as points on the map because they are very specific locations. If I'm considering a service area where I have zip code locations, these would be more boundaries. If I have zip codes or county names or states or something like that, the geocode service on the back end will match whatever I have with the actual boundaries that the system stores. So as I come into ArcGIS Online, I've already uploaded my zip code boundaries. So my market area consists of all of these different zip codes. And I can see how each zip code is represented on the map. And for my purposes, I want to have my market area listed here, but I don't want each zip code represented individually. So what I can run is an analysis. I have a variety of analysis tools. There's one called Dissolve Boundaries, where I could take those zip codes and I could leave all my defaults here. I've already run this analysis, so I won't run it here, but my result is a service area with no zip code differentiation. I just have one clean polygon for my area. So I'm going to go ahead and remove my zip code. And I want to add my new layer. So I will just search donor locations, and it comes right up. And I'll add that into my map. I have my black dots that I chose before publishing, and I want to change that just a little bit. I'm going to symbolize it based on the size of the donation. So the larger the donation from a person, the larger the dot will be on the map, and likewise for the smaller ones. Now that I have my data compiled into a map, I can hit save. I've already saved this map as webinar dashboard. So I just save the changes. And now I can go ahead and start building my application. I'm going to hit share and then create a web app. I'm going to make a very specific type of web app called a dashboard using the ArcGIS operations dashboard. And when I do that, the dashboard is generally used for an executive level audience. That's a common use for it. Where I can show different metrics and show a status of where we are on any particular project or initiative. So the dashboard consists of a series of elements. I have my map element here by default, and I'm going to add a few things. I'll start with a header where I will give it a title, just donors. And then I will also add in an indicator. The indicator, I pick a layer to base it on. I'll choose donor locations. And out of the gate, it gives me a count of how many donors I have. That could be informative, but I'm more interested in the sum of all of my donations. So between all of my donors, this is the sum of money that I've raised this year. And I can go ahead and add a little bit to it to make it more informative. And I will give it a title. And we'll go ahead and save that. The elements will split the screen by default. I'll adjust that after I add just a little bit more. I also want to add a pie chart. And I want to base it on the donation classes, where I used $400 as my benchmark. So I can see what percentage of my donations are over 400 versus under 400. And I can add a title to that. And my title will be donation levels. And I can doctor this up to make it look better. I can adjust my fonts and my sizes and my colors. For our purposes, I'm just concerned about functionality for now. So I'll just keep the defaults, and I'll go ahead and tidy this up a little so that we can see everything. And the last thing that I want to do for my pie chart is I want to create some interoperability between my different elements. So I'm going to add an action. I'll add a filtering action, and it will filter my donation layer in the map as well as my indicator. So now what this will do is when I select the donations over $400, both other elements will update. I will only see the donations over $400, and I will see a sum of donations over $400. Likewise with my smaller donations, or I can go back to seeing the entire set. So this can help me look at specific criteria within my data. Something else I will add is a serial chart. Now, regarding our tapestry segmentation, I want to get some sort of a snapshot of where my donors are coming from and what market segments they are from so that we can plan future marketing efforts to acquire new donors. So I'm going to choose as my category the field that I enriched in Excel, the tapestry segmentation name. And normally I would add in the title like tapestry segment and number of donors. For the sake of time, I will just leave those as is, but I will stagger these so that we can see them. We don't list them all here to keep it clean, but I can hover and see the different market segments for each bar. And I will also add an action, same as before. I'll add a filter so that all of my elements are working together. Go ahead and add that and arrange it so that everything is visible. There we go. And again, I'll come back and just edit my pie chart to add the serial chart as another filter action. So there we go. And again, I'll keep the design as is just for the sake of time. But one thing I can quickly do is change my theme from light to dark if I like the feel that gives me. I'll go ahead and save my dashboard. So now when looking at my bar chart here, I can see that urban villages is by and large my largest market segment of donors. And again, this is fictional data, so that may not happen in real life, but for this data set, that's the case. And I can look throughout the state of California where those urban village donors are. And so I can use that for additional planning. Or I can look at my other larger ones, Valley Growers, or my particularly small ones, such as Rust Belt Traditions, to get an idea of where our smallest donor segments are. So now that I have my application saved, it's like our dark theme didn't stick. Here we go. The last thing I would want to do is go into ArcGIS Online and adjust my sharing settings so that I can designate my audience to make sure that everyone that needs access to my application can get it. And I can come in and look at my finished product. I will need to just adjust this really quick, turn off the edit mode. And there we have our dashboard ready to go. The last thing I would like to add is I can create a separate application focused on tapestry segmentation. Within ArcGIS Online, I can add that data in here entirely. I'm looking at it at the zip code level. And something I could do here is apply a filter. Right now, I'm looking at all of my dominant tapestry segments by zip code. Something that I can do, though, is filter it down to my dominant tapestry segment name, where that equals, see, we'll wait for that to load really quick. So I have my list of all my tapestry segments. Urban Villages was our winner in our current donations. And when I apply that filter, I can see exactly where the zip codes are that are dominantly urban villages. And then I can plan my marketing efforts in those areas where we have seen success before. So that's a quick, oh, and the last thing, sorry, then I'll wrap up, is as I add in additional data into my spreadsheet, I can keep this as my authoritative data center. As I add those donor locations, all I need to do is add those new rows to my map. And then notice this isn't share anymore, it's update. So that way I can just hit update in here. I don't need to touch anything in ArcGIS Online again, and my dashboard will update with whatever new data I am feeding into it. So it is all very seamless to that end. So now we'll turn the time over to Adam, and he'll show us some additional features.
Okay, thanks, Matt. I'd now like to share with you a few more examples of using configurable applications in ArcGIS Online. These examples can help you in your mission to support your communities and communicate the importance of your work. So let's start back in ArcGIS Online. Here we're looking at a web map showing resource locations along with the service area that they cover. And the service area here is pretty similar to what Matt was just showing. But this web map can serve as our base for creating a focused web application. This will allow users to quickly locate where the closest resources are in relation to their location. So after saving the web map. I can choose to share the application. In the same way that Matt just showed you, I'm going to create a web app. Instead of using Operations Dashboard, I'll use Web App Builder. I'll give it a few pieces of information here, choose to get started, and I'm immediately launched into the configuring my web application. Now this is kind of the same experience that you just saw in Operations Dashboard, but with Web App Builder, it's a little bit different. You have the web map here displaying exactly as I just had it in ArcGIS Online. And in addition to setting the theme and styles of the application, I can choose a box theme, a similar type of dashboard theme, a tab theme. I can also choose individual colors to represent my organization's branding, but we'll stick with the foldable theme here. And then I can also choose to create create widgets that will be added to the application. So for this, to help our users find the closest resources, we can add a widget called Near Me. So the Near Me widget allows me to add multiple sources of data, services essentially, to be used, and we'll add in our resource locations. So we'll add a feature layer, choose the resources from our web map, and now we have that listed here as resources. We can add placeholder text to help our users figure out what to guide them in the, say, search here. We can also choose to restrict what fields are used in the search. So like Matt was showing you, you had a wide information of fields that you can apply to these services. Some of them may not be useful in this case for users searching. So we have some ID fields, and that's not going to be readable to the user or understandable. So you can choose to restrict information there, choose to show the display field what will show up to the user, and a wealth of more options here to fine-tune this widget. So under search settings, we can also say which is the search layer that we want to choose, and we'll choose resources. You can add information, configure how directions are applied, how the symbols show up on the map, and additional filtering as well. So we'll leave that here for now. And I've added, you can see I have it in my list on the left-hand side, this left panel. And then the right side, we're actually looking at the application live. So as we configure the application, we can see the changes that we made and view the experience a little bit and test it out before we make it public. So the Near Me widget we just added appears right here in the right corner. If I click this, I can see what the user will see initially. And once I clicked it, I've essentially activated the widget. I could type in an address, or I could simply just click on the map and let that bring back the closest resources. And in this instance, we searched within 5 miles, but I can drag that out to 10 or to 15 and see what information is there. And you can see right now, I'm only within one location, so only one appears on the map. But this is a good opportunity to show you how you can adjust the widget. So if 15 miles is too low of a threshold, I can just simply come back in here, adjust the search settings, and maybe I want to make it 30 miles instead. Now when I click on the map, I can see no results are found, but I can increase the threshold, and I get 2 results now. If I go all the way to 30, as the user, this is the experience that I'm seeing. I can click on the individual locations, get information about them, even get directions from my location to that particular resource. So now what we've just done is have a fully configured web application that you can use with your own data. You can share it out via email, social media, or even embed it in your organization's website. So let's switch now and talk about how you can use story maps to help communicate your cause to your community. Story maps let you combine your own maps and data with narrative text, images, multimedia content, all to help you engage your audience. So here, once again, we're back in the ArcGIS Online map viewer, and we have that same web map that we're going to use for our resource locator. Here, we're going to choose to share this web map, again, as a web app, But instead of choosing one of the tabs at the top, we're actually going to choose this option right here called Build a Story Map. When I click on that, I can see some of the templates that are available to me. Story maps allow you to create your message in different templates based on the data and the type of story you want to tell. So for now, I'll choose Story Map Cascade, which is one of our most popular templates. And I'll choose to give it a name again. And when I click Done, I'll be launched into another building experience. So what we're doing with these configurable applications is enabling you to get up and running very quickly. Now I have a very easy to use experience, and it's simple yet powerful in the options that it gives you. On the left-hand side is a panel that lists different sections of your story. And on the right-hand side, the main stage here, this is a larger section that, again, will give you that real-time preview and allow you to craft your story by entering text, images, video, or web maps. So let's make some changes to this first page. This is our cover page. And our cover page will draw the user in right away. So your title, your background image, it all needs to make a very good first impression. So for my cover page, I'll take some content from the ALS Association's homepage. And I'll actually choose to update this image. Instead of Esri, I'll go to the settings and change the logo. And I'll actually browse for an image. And I'll choose this ALS logo image I have on my machine. And then I can take the website for ALS, put it as the link, so when someone clicks on it, they'll go right to that site. And I'll choose to give it a tagline and hit apply. So now my logo comes in, I can see the tagline I've created, and now I want to change the title. And then for my background image, what I'll do is I'll actually embed a YouTube video. So this is a YouTube video from the ALS Association, and I'll paste that in here. And you can see it start to load in the background. So now when a user opens up this story map, they'll see the title, they'll see the logo, and they'll see something moving in the background that will give them an idea of what this story map is about and what the message is that you want to convey to them. So now we have that effective first impression, and then we can continue to build our story. So when I scroll down, you may have been wondering what happened to that web map when I chose to share this as a story map. Well, here it is. It embeds it right away for you. And I can make this change the size a little bit. Maybe we want to make it larger, full screen as the user scrolls through, or maybe it's just a small preview. For now, we'll leave it as medium size. You can actually disable interaction as well. So if you just want this to be a sort of an image of your web map, you can just let people view that. But we want interaction to be enabled. And then you can choose to remove this, edit it if you want. You can even add in an alternate image for a mobile device. So if something isn't supported, you want to make sure that the mobile experience is very well for the user, you can make that option here. For now, we'll leave that there. So as I scroll down, we can see that there's this little plus size or plus icon that will allow me to create different sections. So adding a simple section is easy as text, as media, a separated title section, or an immersive section. An immersive section showcases your media by making it full screen with smaller floating panels on the side for short snippets of narrative. Immersive sections are composed of a series of views. I can choose to add a view down here, and as readers scroll through your story, each view is revealed using a transition, which you can customize here, such as fade or swiping. So let's take a look at a final version of a story map. This is the Cascade story map, and there's a static image used as the background for the cover page. There's an embedded video in the next section. And finally, an immersive section that shows the web map without interaction, but allows you to get an idea of what this web map is and how you could use it. Moving on, I just want to highlight the resources that are available to you to build your story map. So on the story maps homepage, I can view the featured story maps. things from the community, see what they're building, maybe get ideas from what other people in your industry or your space are building and how they're telling their story. There are also links at the top of the page for gallery and resources. The gallery is an incredible resource that you can use to view story maps by different themes and industries, or even filter by the type of template that's used. So if you're interested in Cascade story maps, but Cascade story maps that nonprofits and NGOs are putting out, there you have a nice curated view of story maps showing annual reports, friends of the Verde River, the power of speech, lots of great examples to show. And the story maps team themselves are dedicated to helping you tell your story. They release blog posts, videos, and are very active on social media. So I would encourage all of you to get connected. Story maps are incredibly effective at combining multimedia and maps to engage your audience. So after getting started, you may be wondering what your next steps are. In your daily work, it may be helpful to investigate these two applications. So ArcGIS Pro is a professional 2D and 3D mapping application. On the desktop, it's a next-generation 64-bit application. It has an intuitive ribbon-like interface, like you were seeing in Microsoft Excel. It's very contextual, so as you click on a layer, as you click on a table, different tools are presented for what you're clicking on. Insights for ArcGIS is a data analytics web application, and it's powered by the location element in your data set. It's web-based. You can combine maps, charts, and tables to ask questions about your data, save your workflows, and share that with your team internally or with the community at large. So these two applications may end up being your go-to resources in future work. So with that, I'd also like to talk about, close by talking about the resources that are available. In addition to resources for applications like story maps, there's also online training. There's learn lessons that are focused, guided lessons for maybe an hour or 2 hours that walk you through step by step how to accomplish a workflow using ArcGIS. There's also the GeoNet community that's very active with other users and is monitored by Esri staff. And then of course, Esri is on social media and they're very active, so we'd encourage you to get connected that way. And with that, I'd like to just hand it back to Salim.
Very good, thanks, Adam. So thank you. Again, just to, as a reminder, if you are not yet a member of the Esri nonprofit organization program, just go to esri.com/nonprofit, scroll towards the bottom of the page, click on the Begin Here link, and you can fill out a quick form to apply for the program. Or you can email nonprofit_inquiry@esri.com with any other questions or inquiries that you may have. So we would now invite folks to ask any questions that they may have. I sent a message to the group via the chat window in the GoToWebinar control panel. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to enter them there. One question we had already received that we can start with would be, can I try ArcGIS before I sign up for the nonprofit program? The answer to that would be absolutely. We offer trial versions of all of our software, or much of our software. You can just simply go to esri.com/trial, and it will take you to the trial page that will allow you to sign up, register for the trial, download the software and be able to use it for 21 days. So that is definitely an option and something for you all. You could start with the trial, and then once you've had a chance to play around with it, sign up for the nonprofit program and move forward with the highly discounted nonprofit offerings that we make available through the program. One other question that we're getting is, someone asking if there is data that comes with the software that we can, that they can use to get started. And again, the answer is absolutely. As Matt showed you in his demonstration, showing you the demographic data and tapestry data, Esri has a wealth of content and data that is a part of the platform that we're talking about today, a part of ArcGIS. If you go to esri.com/livingatlas or livingatlas.arcgis.com, you'll find a gallery of content that Esri includes with the platform. That includes data that we purchase from third parties, base maps, imagery, various other data sets that we purchase or process and publish as part of ArcGIS. It also includes content from our user community that is contributed to Esri's Living Atlas and made discoverable and accessible through our Living Atlas. So there's a tremendous amount of content and data in the platform. When you log in to ArcGIS Online, you'll have access to it and can get started working with that data in combination with your own data immediately. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions coming through.
Salim, I think we have a question related to recommendations on a place to connect with users in the nonprofit community. And I think maybe one of the great ways to do that is to follow us on Twitter, Esri_nonprofit, where we post pretty much everything that we're doing, events like this or other events sort of that are related to the nonprofit community. And I believe we are even talking about how to get a community started on GeoNet. So look forward to that, and if we do get that started, you'll probably hear about that first maybe through our social media channels.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. That's a great point. And yeah, the other thing that I would say is if you, or add to that, is if you do go to esri.com/nonprofit, on the same website, you will see other pages around showcasing how people are using GIS in the sustainable development, humanitarian, and conservation industries. So there's lots of good information up there as well. If you do want to just get in touch with us, you can click on the Get Started link or button at the top of those pages, and that'll get you connected with somebody from Esri, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.
So there's also a question about recommendations on computers. I'll answer that really quick. There's if you just Google Esri system requirements, there is a lot of information that comes up with that. For the online version, ArcGIS Online, they're very loose requirements. Generally, any machine that has good internet access with the common web browsers, whether it's Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox, Internet Explorer, any of those will work with ArcGIS Online. As you move into the desktop applications like ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS Desktop, there may be more specific requirements. Generally, PCs are required, and there are different versions that will be supported. Some of the older versions may not be, but you'll find all of that information available online.
That's great. Thank you, Matt. All right, very good. Well, I don't see any other questions coming through. The Woody, I do see, looks like you have your hand up. Feel free to put a question into the chat if you do have one. I'll give just a second to see if anybody else does ask any questions. While we're waiting to see if there are any other questions, I'll just move to the next slide really quick and let everybody know about another webinar that we have planned. Will be, excuse me, will be held in a few weeks on November 27th from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be doing a webinar on the focused on the humanitarian community and how organizations can leverage ArcGIS to share geospatial information in a humanitarian context. You can register for that webinar by going to the link that you see on the screen, go.esri.com/SD humanitarian webinar. And that webinar will also be recorded and available on our website. So if you want to join us for that, we'd love to have you. If not, you can always come back and watch the recording at a later date. Very good. Without any other questions, I will go ahead and thank everyone for taking the time to join us for this webcast. I hope that you all found it useful and informative. We would love to get in touch if there's additional discussion or conversation that you'd like to have. Beyond that, have a great rest of your day or evening for you. For those of you that are ahead of us here in DC, we're going to close out the webinar here in just a moment, but there will be a survey that pops up. We would really appreciate and welcome your feedback. So please take a minute or two to complete the survey if you would not mind. Otherwise, thank you all so much for your time. Hope you found this to be useful and informative. Have a great day, and we look forward to having you on our next webinar.